In the heart of a small, sleepy town called Wyndham, nestled between rolling hills and surrounded by thick, ancient woods, there stood an old, mysterious library. The building was unlike any other. Its walls were covered with ivy that seemed to pulse with life, and its windows were stained with colors that danced in the sunlight. The locals called it the Enchanted Library, but few dared to enter. The library was said to be home to a vast collection of books, some so ancient that their pages crumbled to dust at the slightest touch, others so powerful that they could change the world with a single word. But what made the library truly special was the magic within it, magic that could bring stories to life. Lila Fairweather had always been fascinated by the tales of the Enchanted Library. From the moment she could read, she devoured every book she could find about its mysteries. She imagined herself as a brave adventurer, exploring the dusty corridors and discovering secrets long forgotten. But as much as she dreamed, she had never dared to set foot inside. That is, until her 12th birthday. On that day, Lila's grandmother, who had raised her after her parents had passed away, handed her a small, intricately carved wooden box. This, her grandmother said with a twinkle in her eye, belonged to your mother. She would have wanted you to have it. Lila opened the box to find a key, a large, ornate key made of brass. It was heavy and cold to the touch, and it bore a strange, swirling pattern on the bow. "What is this for?" Lila asked, her eyes wide with curiosity. Her grandmother smiled softly. "It's the key to the Enchanted Library, my dear. Your mother was one of its keepers, as was her mother before her. Now it's your turn." Lila's heart raced. The idea that she might be connected to the library she had dreamed about for so long filled her with excitement and a little bit of fear. "But I don't know how to be a keeper," she stammered. Her grandmother placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "You'll learn. The library will teach you. But remember, Lila, the library is not just a place of wonder. It can be dangerous if not respected. Promise me you'll be careful." Lila nodded, clutching the key tightly. She felt a strange sense of responsibility settle over her, but it was tempered by a growing determination. She knew she had to go to the library. The next morning, with the key safely tucked into the pocket of her coat, Lila made her way to the library. The townspeople watched her as she passed, their expressions a mixture of concern and awe. No one had entered the library in years, and many believed it was best left undisturbed. The library loomed before her, its ivy-covered walls towering overhead. Lila took a deep breath and approached the massive wooden doors. They were carved with the same swirling pattern as the key, and as she slid the key into the lock, she felt a subtle vibration in the air, as if the library itself was waking up. With a creak that echoed through the quiet morning, the doors swung open, revealing a dimly lit foyer. Lila hesitated for a moment, then stepped inside. The doors closed behind her with a soft thud, and she found herself standing in a vast, circular room filled with bookshelves that reached up to a domed ceiling painted with a mural of the night sky. The air inside the library was thick with the scent of old paper and leather. Lila's eyes widened as she took in her surroundings. Every surface was covered with books, scrolls, and artifacts, some of which glowed faintly with a mysterious light. She felt a shiver run down her spine, but it wasn't fear. It was awe. As she wandered through the library, Lila noticed that the books seemed to be organized in a strange, almost chaotic manner. There were no labels, no signs to indicate what section she was in, yet she felt an inexplicable pull towards a particular shelf. She reached out and picked up a book that seemed to call to her, its cover worn but still vibrant with color. The title read, "The Lost Kingdoms of Aldoria." Lila opened the book, and as she did, the words on the page began to shimmer and move. Before she knew what was happening, The letters lifted off the page and swirled around her, creating a vortex of light and sound. Lila gasped, but she didn't let go of the book. The world around her dissolved into a blur of colors and shapes, and she felt herself being pulled into the story. When the spinning stopped, Lila found herself standing in the middle of a dense, ancient forest. The trees were taller than any she had ever seen, their leaves a deep, emerald green. The air was cool and fresh, and the ground was covered in a soft, mossy carpet. Lila looked down at the book in her hands, which was now glowing softly. The words on the page had changed, and as she read them, she realized she was no longer in the library. She was inside the story. Lila had heard of the library's magic, but she had never imagined anything like this. She was actually living the story, experiencing it firsthand. The thought thrilled her, but she knew she had to be careful. She didn't know what dangers might lurk in this strange, magical world. As she ventured deeper into the forest, Lila heard the sound of running water. She followed the sound until she came to a small, crystal-clear stream. Sitting by the water's edge was a young boy, no older than Lila herself. He had dark hair and bright green eyes, and he was dressed in simple, homespun clothes. The boy looked up as Lila approached, and his eyes widened in surprise. "Who are you?" he asked, his voice filled with wonder. "I'm Lila," she replied. "Who are you?" "I'm Eamon," the boy said, standing up and brushing the dirt off his trousers. "I live in the village of Eldoria, just beyond the forest." "But how did you get here? I've never seen you before." Lila hesitated, unsure of how to explain. I'm not from here. I came from a place called Wyndham, through a magical library." Eamon's eyes lit up with excitement. "A magical library? That sounds amazing. I've heard stories of such places, but I never thought they were real. You must be very special to have come here." Lila blushed, not sure how to respond. She didn't feel special, just very lucky. "I'm not sure about that," she said modestly. "But I do want to help. Is there something I can do for you?" Eamon looked thoughtful for a moment, then nodded. "Actually, there is. Our village has been in trouble for a long time. There's a dark shadow that has fallen over Eldoria, and no one knows how to stop it. Maybe you can help us find a way to lift the curse." Lila felt a surge of determination. This was exactly the kind of adventure she had always dreamed of. "I'll do my best," she promised. "Take me to your village." Eamon led Lila through the forest, and soon they emerged into a clearing where a small, picturesque village stood. The houses were made of stone and wood, with thatched roofs and chimneys that puffed out smoke. But as they got closer, Lila noticed that the village wasn't as idyllic as it first seemed. The air was heavy with a sense of sadness and despair, and the villagers moved about with slumped shoulders and weary expressions. "What happened here?" Lila asked, her heart aching for the people of Eldoria. Eamon sighed. "It started many years ago, long before I was born. There was a great war between the kingdoms of Eldoria and Drakmor, and though Eldoria was victorious, the cost was great. The land was cursed, and the people have suffered ever since. Crops fail, animals die, and a strange sickness has spread among the villagers. No one knows how to break the curse, but some say that the answer lies in the lost kingdoms that were once part of Eldoria." Lila listened intently, her mind racing. "The lost kingdoms, are they mentioned in this book?" she asked, holding up The Lost Kingdoms of Eldoria. Eamon's eyes widened. "That book. It's been lost for centuries. How did you find it?" Lila explained how she had been drawn to the book in the enchanted library and how it had brought her into the story. Eamon's excitement grew with each word. "If that book brought you here, then it must hold the key to breaking the curse." Eamon exclaimed. "We have to find out what it says." They found a quiet spot in the village square, and Lila opened the book once more. The words on the page were now clear, and as she read aloud, the villagers began to gather around, drawn by the promise of hope. The book spoke of 3 lost kingdoms, Arcadia, Veridizia, and Lemuria, each of which had once been a part of Eldoria. The kingdoms had been lost to time, hidden away by powerful magic to protect them from the ravages of the war. But the book also hinted that the only way to lift the curse was to reunite the 3 kingdoms with Eldoria, restoring the land to